In one of the martial arts that I study, there are multiple ways to learn and get information about the art and learn the techniques. There's studying the old scrolls, which would be written transmission. There is going to a teacher who is qualified at the highest level. That would be considered oral transmission because there are things not in the scrolls that can only be taught verbally and through demonstration. And then there's something called divine transmission, which the Japanese consider that when you get to a certain point of mastery of the basics and you know all the things from the teachers that have been handed down through the line, you practice and practice and practice until you become inspired from above, which is something which breathes new life, not just into you and your art, but breathes new life into the lineage as a whole. But it's this word transmission which is so important to me. And I want to talk a little bit about transmission as it reflects in a practice of journaling. And this is something which I find tremendously important. I have all the guys who coach with me become maniacs about journaling. A lot of times we think about journaling, we think about, dear diary, today Janet looked at me in the corridor and smiled at me. I know who Janet is. But that is not journaling. That is what teenage girls do. Journaling is a powerful process that will rapidly, in a month or less, make you clear, laser focused, and more effective as a man. Here's how. Journaling is a process of getting deeply in touch with deep, previously hidden parts of yourself. This is not how most people teach journaling, right? Here's what journaling is to me. I have discovered that most men and women in my life or who I've met who are incredibly effective have a very thin, porous, transparent barrier between their conscious mind and that buried unconscious mind. Whereas many people who are ineffective, frustrated, and stuck in life have this thick, concrete barrier between the two, and therefore they never become creative. It's incredibly hard to change their behaviors. They get stuck in that robotic loop of uncreative life, which I'm going to bet if you're watching this video is not of a lot of interest to you. So I want you really to listen to this. Journaling is a way to begin to get better access and build a better, higher quality relationship with your unconscious, which is the part of you which ultimately will be writing on the page. So here is a process that you can use to get these results. The first thing that I recommend, don't use a shitty notepad. Make journaling something important. Make it a sacred time for yourself to connect with yourself. So go out and invest. If you want good results in life, it always, to some degree or another, comes down to invest in yourself. So go out and get a nice journal. Get something made of leather with old paper in it. Something where you open it up, it smells like something tangible. And the reason for this is twofold. One, make it an experience when you use it and open it up. Make this a prized possession for you, even though you might burn it eventually. I also think of it this way. When I'm journaling, I'm transmitting knowledge, transmission from myself, from the divine, however I see it, onto paper. One day, I'll be dead, and so will you. One day, I'll be gone. And maybe my son or my grandson or 100, 200 years from now, somebody might read my journal and something I say might be important and give value to that person, and therefore I become immortal. And we all want to be immortal, right? So think of it that way. Consider this transmission to be your chronicling of who you are and your wisdom. Allow your wisdom to come out and record it for the next generation. It's a powerful way to live. So you have this journal, this nice thing. Here's what I recommend. Get your iPhone or Android if you're unfortunate enough to have one, and set a timer, 15, 20 minutes. Go to airplane mode, nobody can call you. If you want, put on some wave sounds or some binaural beats, get centered. And then the problem for a lot of people becomes, I don't know what to write. There are two solutions to this. One, start writing. Complete shit if you have to. Write absolute garbage. Grab today's newspaper and start writing the headlines in the first part of the story. Here's what's going to happen next. The act of writing is going to connect the paper to you, and then as you breathe and you become more open and connected to yourself, your unconscious is going to start to take over. And what I want you to do is spend 15, 20 minutes a day allowing that wisdom to come out of you. Now, what are you supposed to write about? Here's a couple of ideas that I have. One thing that I write about regularly is I just start and I think to myself, what's bugging me? What's eating at me right now? What am I tangled up in? What am I frustrated about? What's causing me friction in my life? Let me write about that. And I'll start writing about it. I'll start writing what it is, and suddenly I'll have new ideas and new views on what it even is that's bugging me. And then as I keep writing, I'll investigate it. I'll see it from different angles. I'll investigate, is it really a problem? Oftentimes I'll reframe it and turn it into a benefit. By the time I'm done with it, that thing's been turned inside out 10 different ways, and I'm not eaten up by it anymore. Another thing I'll focus on is, what are my values? Go back to the section on conviction and journal about your values and what's important to you. Ask yourself, who do I want to be? Ask yourself, what is my message? Ask yourself, what is my purpose? Write about the things that are important. You know, when I was a kid, I think a lot of us had this. I used to create theories on what life was and how the universe worked. And I used to ask myself these big questions. I remember 15 years old tearing into Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan, just trying to quench my thirst for understanding why I was here and what was it all about. And then a lot of us became adults. We got jobs and mortgages and all that boring shit, and we stopped asking these big questions. Our investigation stopped, and for many of us, the result was we stopped being as alive as we were when we were younger. So I invite you to also consider the big questions of life. Investigate what your life means, what it's all about, why you're here, what is God. Ask yourself big questions. You don't have to have the answers, but allow yourself to write something. And over time, you might be surprised. In fact, I guarantee you, you will be surprised by how much wisdom you actually have inside of yourself. When you start to journal about it, you take vague concepts and you put it into concrete words. And not only will you discover that you have a lot of wisdom, you'll also understand how you can transmit that wisdom cleanly, effectively, in a way they can understand to other people you care about. Now, you can have all this knowledge in the world and all the wisdom, but nobody will ever perceive you as wise if you can't communicate it. So learn how to channel this. But most importantly, learn to allow your unconscious to come through you, to see the world and to see problems and solutions in entirely new ways that you've never considered before. Here's my challenge to you. Get a nice journal. Carve out 15 minutes a day for 30 days. Some days will be great, some days will not be so great, just like going to the gym. After 30 days, I guarantee you that you're going to find yourself more at peace, more centered, and perhaps most importantly, when it comes to results, you're going to find yourself very, very clear and very, very focused on what you want, what you have to do today to move closer to what you want. Of course, we discussed earlier on about major definite purpose. Journaling is such a powerful place to explore what that is, why you want it, why it's important, and crystallize it into a strategy and actions that you can do so you can have an incredible life. So journaling is important. It's not just about your diary. The next thing I want to discuss with you is meditation. Now, meditation gets a bad rap for a lot of guys. Here's why I think that is. Meditation, when we think of it, we think of 1970s hippies smoking too much weed and putting flowers in their hair, which is cool, but for a lot of guys that I roll with, that just does not connect. It does not resonate. One thing I say to a lot of men is that if you understood that every warrior tradition which has ever existed, from the Spartans to the Native Americans to the samurai, they all had a spiritual core. They all understood that with death knocking on your door every moment, you want to go deep into your spirit and who you are and what happens next. And so every warrior tradition has a meditative or a contemplative tradition or practice. Journaling, sitting quietly, being alone in the woods, meditating, whatever it is. And when you understand it that way, you can also start to understand that these warrior traditions have meditation practices, because a man who meditates becomes a man who can bring righteous destruction on his enemies on the battlefield. When you see it that way, meditation becomes a little bit different, doesn't it? If you're in business and you're not meditating, you're missing a trick. So meditating, guys like to try it and then they stop because they say, I wasn't any good at it. They expect to sit down and be a Zen master. They expect to sit down and have their mind be quiet. And that is not the reality. The reality is you might spend weeks, months, or years sitting down with your mind running around like a crazy rabbit all over the place. And it can be frustrating, but the practice is the practice. Keep doing it. Over time, you're going to find a net effect. I love Zen meditation. Sit down in a comfortable place, spine erect, and just practice awareness. Practice watching your thoughts. Practice your breath. Some days it'll be great. Some days it'll be terrible. But over time, it will start to change your life. Another practice I love is from the Taoist traditions, which rather than being passive, sitting still, doing nothing, we're literally having experiences and moving things around our body. So if you did the warrior, full potential warrior exercises earlier, where you were visualizing that space and that place, which is peaceful for you, and you're interacting with parts of yourself, that is a kind of meditation. I have a cave meditation, which takes you on a whole journey. I do it in the Crucible, in fact. I take guys on a journey which for several guys has been absolutely life-changing. Change their business, change the way they show up for their families. So meditation in that way is important. I'm going to place directly after this video something I call the Warrior Smile Meditation, which is a way of breathing and connecting with your emotions and your body and your feelings in a way that you can train yourself on a daily basis to become more centered, more calm, happier, cooler, and sexier. Now, to me, that is a practice worth doing. I'm sure it is to you as well. So right after this video, if you can, go practice this stuff. Get yourself a journal, practice meditating. Set yourself a goal for the next 30, 60, 90 days of sticking to this practice, whether it's easy or hard. Commit. Do it. Watch your life change. I'll see you in the next video. Come on back.